Welcome to episode 261 of the Working Fans Podcast, where Dave and myself will be talking about a variety of subjects today. But first, we want to mention our sponsor, Game Up Hard Hydration. It's like your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink got together, had a baby, but it's so much better. You have heard us do the commercial, so you know what it is, but Dave is going to give you those stats.
Oh, we're talking about orange. We're talking about fruit punch. We're talking lemon lime. We're talking grape. And it's only 110 calories and low carb. So, guys, enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it. Get yourself some Game Up.
And we are also talking comparisons. A recent short that went up. Who had better matches? Jay Lethal, Samoa Joe. Very interesting for a couple reasons, but I want to know kind of how you decided to put these two together.
Well, Joseph, we were just getting ready to watch some AEW Dynamite, and I saw Jay Lethal in the backstage, got into it with Hangman Page, and I thought, man, Jay Lethal is so underutilized. I like that Jeff Jarrett, who's a longtime veteran, is getting his due and getting some shine on TV, but we should really be doing more with Jay Lethal. And then I thought about Samoa Joe being kind of out right now in storyline. And even though he's had a great run as world champion in AEW, it's like, man, And then when I started thinking about those two, and this was just the ADD brain working, right? I just started thinking about those two. I started thinking, man, talk about two guys that were hugely successful in both Ring of Honor and TNA. And I just thought, they're two of the best. Who is the better in-ring competitor? Because Samoa Joe, to me, and I said this in the video, is clearly the more successful because he had that AEW World Championship run. He had the NXT Championship run. And even though it wasn't very memorable, he was a United States champion on the main roster in WWE. So he's had all that stuff. He's done the commentary at WrestleMania. He's been a big part of that stuff. So you can't, but in-ring, bell to bell, Lethal's about as good as anybody goes. But I don't know. It's a different style. And I think I kind of like Samoa Joe matches a little bit better.
I like that your brain went there because I was thinking the same thing, that both these two seem underutilized. And I don't want to pile up on AEW, but it's wild that you can bring in two stars of this magnitude that have done such big things in other companies and have them be relatively inconsequential. Like that match that kicked off Dynamite with Jay Lethal was amazing, but he's nowhere near where he was when he was ROH champion defending that title against Jay Briscoe at back-to-back best in the worlds. So I had a feeling you would kind of tend to go towards Samoa Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go towards Lethal because I really watched him in Ring of Honor, where he was that dominant world heavyweight champion, where he was that dominant television champion, where he was, charismatic on screen. We got Jess joining us today. How is it going, Jess?
Hey, Jess.
And just getting back to Jay Lethal, I can't get over how these two have been used in AEW.
Yeah, and I think we both agree. We just think they're underutilized, and at the end of the day, they could be doing so much more. I wish maybe Ring of Honor had a bigger platform for AEW, or maybe they would be part of the NXT brand if they were in WWE or something. If they can't be on the main roster of either show, they should be in a big part of something because they're just too good not to be.
I'm surprised Jay Lethal isn't in AEW's version of ROH and featured more. Because that's a way you could really make ROH something, is give it that gravitas. Give either of these guys the ROH title,
sure,
and you could really make something. And speaking of being underutilized, maybe questioning how AEW operates, we are looking at two pay-per-views coming up on the Memorial Day weekend, weekend before. And I was thinking when, coming up with ideas for this episode, who's had the better buildup? All In has been building up for a while. we are just coming off SummerSlam and now going into the build-up for Bash in Berlin. And I think it's an interesting discussion to have.
So I'm going to surprise some people here probably. I actually feel like All In has had the better build. Now, WWE pay-per-views have been on fire. They've been great. I think Gunther and Randy Orton is built well. But the thing with All In London, in whether you know the weekly television shows, maybe not all the storylines are where they should be, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's been a lot of buildup for MJF and Will Ospreay, right? There's been a lot of buildup. Bryan Danielson is putting his career on the line with Swerve. And I don't think Bryan Danielson is retiring yet. I don't think he's finishing his career. But because, I tell this sometimes like, with my girlfriend and my kids, sometimes negative things can bring out positive things, right? And I feel like one thing that I don't necessarily like about Danielson, I love Danielson. I think he's the best in the world. But sometimes I think he's too unselfish. He's done too many jobs. He's lost too many big matches. However, as we go into this match, it's kind of worked for him because I think it creates this element of doubt. Is he really going to lose? Does he need neck surgery? He's had so many injuries. Maybe Swerve will take him out, but I don't think so. And because of that, though, it's made All In interesting to me. Now, at the end of the day, is this going to be the thing? Is AEW going to gain a ton of momentum off of this pay-per-view? I don't know. We'll see. WWE is so hot right now. But I can say, in a vacuum, looking at both these shows, this is one show where AEW has done a really good job for me, at least with those top main two matches, Ospreay MJF and Danielson and Swerve. I'm really looking forward to those two matches.
This is wild that we're going to disagree on two subjects this week because usually our thinking is right down the middle. I really like the Bash in Berlin build-up because it's been in a shorter time period from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. Yes. Some of these stories have been building for a while, but now that we're getting that mixed tag match with Dom, Rhea, Priest, and Liv, we're getting Randy Orton coming in, going for that title, looking competitive.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the one thing I will say for All In is that Mariah May, Toni Storm build-up has been amazing. That video this week was great.
Yeah, I didn't even say that. You're right.
The Mina Shirakawa appearance, there's more than two reasons why I enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed AEW, and you look at how they've built up MJF versus Will Ospreay with that Tiger Driver, the teasing of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it's looking like we're almost, if it hasn't been announced already, getting a three-way match for the tag championship. So, I mean, I want to put my money on Bash in Berlin, but I feel like I just made a little bit more of a case for All In there.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that's the great thing, right, Joe, is that, we can toot our own horns a little bit here. We're not necessarily biased for one promotion, although we may be enjoying a lot of WWE stuff lately. I can say in a vacuum, All In is a bigger show right now to me from a wrestling standpoint. I understand that WWE is still going to make a ton more money because they're just a hotter promotion right now. But I'm definitely very excited about what AEW is doing with All In.
100%. And you talk about hot promotions right now, things that are just taking off. If you're here, you've seen the title of the episode.
Yes.
And we can actually get a little bit of inside info because Jess got to meet Joe Hendry last week in Albany. But the question of the week after NXT this week, and I thought it really, made a statement, was, will Joe Hendry be the next NXT champ?
I hope so. I mean, I wish he had won the TNA championship at the last pay-per-view there, because I think it would be in everybody's best interest if he had the TNA and the NXT championship. I think from TNA standpoint, you really hope that they would put the NXT title on him. Joe Hendry, obviously that would be huge news. But even for NXT and WWE, I think it would be it would create a nice little wave going here because it would create buzz. People would be like, wow, they really put the title on Joe Hendry. Like, they gave him some victories, but I didn't think they'd do that. And I think that would make for some really cool stuff. I think this is clearly a guy you're going to sign at some point. So I say go for it, and eventually introduce him on the main roster and have him be as hot as he possibly can be, because this guy's got more buzz right now. I mean, for a guy who's not been on AEW Dynamite or WWE Raw or WWE SmackDown, this guy probably has more buzz than anybody right now. It's crazy.
100%. And I just lost the point I was going to make. Oh, I was listening to Between the Sheets, I believe, last week, the podcast. And I believe that David Bixenspan said that he has had an agreement to train at the Performance Center for a little while now.
Yes. He actually talked about Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I was going to say he actually did talk about that interview I saw too. So go ahead.
And I thought that was just wild to hear that there has been this working agreement. And is it a good move for TNA? Because I feel like everything about this partnership is leading to Joe Hendry leaving. And what does TNA have to gain from that partnership?
Right now, they're just getting some of the buzz. They're getting some of their talents, and they're getting the TNA name on USA Network. And I would imagine it'll eventually be on the CW network for what it's worth too. And on a side note too, like if they're still doing business with them on those CW shows, I don't know if you saw, but they're taking NXT on the road to Chicago, and they're showing a picture of CM Punk on that. And then the second NXT show will be on the road in St. Louis, and they're showing a picture of Randy Orton. So I'm thinking we're going to have Randy Orton and CM Punk on back-to-back NXT. And are we going to get Joe Hendry involved with some of these guys? And again, that's just great business for TNA if it is. The hotter NXT gets, as long as Joe Hendry and there's representation of TNA on there, that'll be good. Now, that being said, this could all end in a couple weeks. I think Joe Hendry is definitely winning this three-way match. Just look at the other competitors, Pete Dunne and Wes Lee. They're both heels. All right, so just setting up with Ethan Page, who's clearly a heel. You could do heel versus heel, but I don't think they're going to, because Ethan Page is such a chicken shit scumbag heel that I think you're going to have that babyface Joe Hendry. Now, that'll create a lot of buzz. Does Joe Hendry actually win the title? We'll see. I always have a hard time seeing WWE or any company actually doing this, but this might be the time.
And I really do like that three-way match, because Pete Dunne, they've really been building him up in a way to get him away from that Butch, to get him back to where he was. Wes Lee turning on the Rascals, having that reason to go for the championship. Very interesting as well. But I got to agree with you. It looks like it's going to be Joe Hendry, and No Mercy is going to be quite an event. Mm-hmm. What else in wrestling this week kind of caught your eye? Because we haven't talked much about wrestling before the show, finding out about the work weeks. We are coming out of our busy summer season. So as the fall hits, as winter hits, we are hoping to bring you more content. We have a very interesting idea for 2-3 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. We will get into that more in future episodes, but we got couple special episodes coming your way, and possibly a format change in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited, like we talked about earlier, about All In and some of the build we're seeing. I think MJS promos are cooking right now. I like what Swerve did with Danielson the other night. I'm not a huge fan of how we're building the trios match. Is going to be, looks like a three-way, and then the tag team titles match might be a three-way, and we're just keep having these people interfering in each other's matches, so that doesn't do it for me. Britt Baker and Mercedes should be a good match, but for some reason, whenever they're on together, it always feels a little clunky to me. Like I just haven't really gotten into what they've pulled off so far. Meanwhile, in WWE, I'm loving all the stuff with Judgment Day right now, and they're doing a great job of keeping Priest and Ripley strong while keeping that heel heat with Judgment Day, in particular with Liv and Dom, who neither one of them will get the finish done to him. Liv saves Dom one week, Dom saves Liv the next week. So I'm enjoying all that. SmackDown was interesting. I felt kind of like a friend of ours of the show, Jake, did with Kevin Owens segment last week, where Cody Rhodes said, I want to give you a title shot, and Kevin was kind of reluctant. Like, to me, it's like, well, why is Kevin Owens reluctant? Like, this is what you should want. You should always be the champion. That being said, Kevin is so good. Like, when he gets mad, he's talking about why you giving Roman Reigns a shot. He hasn't been here. He says, go open that dressing room. Go look in that locker room door. There's someone you'll find right there. It's like he's so good at it that it's like, okay, like he's just going to make this work. So I didn't like how they got there, but in the end, we're getting Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. And I'll ask you this. I'll turn this around. Do we see a Kevin Owens heel turn?
That is a good question. I haven't been watching a lot of SmackDown, so I can't comment on that as much. Fridays have really been a blind spot for me. Plus, It's just not on a regular streaming service that I use that I can catch up with it the next day. But Kevin Owens is such a good heel that almost why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more dynamic, and I think it could really make something for going forward. So I'm gonna say yes.
It'll be interesting. I mean, because AJ Styles turned heel when he feuded with Cody too, and it's kind of an interesting thing that Cody might be making some heels here. But so I'm interested in all that. Obviously, Randy Orton, Gunther. Oh, one thing we didn't comment about too that I really enjoyed was Randy Orton and Gunther in their face-off on Raw, and then it bleeds into Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, and it now looks like those two are going to have a strap match. So Orton connects with that RKO on Gunther. Gunther has like the stare down, like he's not going to get caught, but just turns his head just a bit to look at Drew. He gets nailed, and before you know it, Punk and Drew are feuding on the outside. So I did enjoy that segment, and I like the fact that almost it was a little something different from WWE and Raw, that we're allowing two feuds and two segments to almost kind of cross over into each other here.
Yeah, it makes for interesting TV. Speaking about not liking the build-up, but kind of enjoying where we're going, we didn't mention that at All In, we are getting a coffin match now.
Oh, right.
I liked the attack on the ramp as Darby's coming out. I wasn't as big about the fight backstage, but I guess natural progression of where the ramp attack goes. And it seemed like they were really cramming in a reason for a coffin match. I'm here for a coffin match. I like a good coffin match, but it's the clunkiness of getting there and kind of like, what are we doing here type thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Another thing I loved is the women's division getting featured on NXT and them talking about how stacked the women's division is. And you see all the ladies there. And we talked about stacked women's divisions a while ago and how NXT is featuring it. But it's great that they're setting up these matches to feature more of them.
What's her name? I'm blanking out now. The one who's part of the No Quarter Catch crew now.
Ren Sinclair.
She used to be Maddie Winkowski, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, just seeing her involved and leading to Charlie Dempsey reclaiming the Heritage Cup championship. I thought that was
another thing this week. Charlie Dempsey winning that and her involvement with that group now. Do you think we're setting up a match down the road for the family and the No Quarter Catch crew?
Yeah, I would say so. But what was interesting was that the family was walking out in the comment, and Obafemi kind of comes out and interrupts him, not like necessarily on purpose, but he gets in front of him and kind of cuts him off. And I feel like that's happened like 2 weeks in a row now here.
I believe they cut him off last week. I think Obafemi was talking.
Okay.
I thought that was this week, but it could have been last week because I remember Obafemi was talking to somebody and Tony D'Angelo and the family came out of a door behind him and just kind of like walked into his shot. And he just kind of looked like, what is going on here?
And now, so now that was the flip this week because Obafemi walked in front of them when they're asking how Tony D'Angelo felt about the loss. and Obafemi was getting, ready for his match with Otis there. So I think that that'll lead to, it looks like they're going to possibly lead to maybe Tony D'Angelo getting a shot at the North American title against Obafemi right now. So I think we might end up switching gears and going with that, which is just going to be, obviously, we're just continuing this momentum with Obafemi, which, by the way, there's another thing I like that we brought Otis down for this, in the sense it was a good use of Otis, and it's just a good use of continuing to build up Obafemi, who's just got modern day Goldberg written all over him, like a big, strong, athletic guy who is just plowing through this competition. And I almost kind of hope he remains undefeated in NXT and just goes right up to the main roster, because I think he's another guy with the proper buzz. He's going to be something special.
Definitely. And if you want to talk about good use of the summer, you want to talk about a buzz, you're talking about Game Up Hard Hydration.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories, including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.